Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has emerged as a living testament to what true African leadership could and should be. At just 36 years old, this soldier-turned-statesman has done what Africa's bloated, self-serving elites have refused to do for decades: live humbly, lead boldly, and build a nation for its people, not for its parasites. His modest lifestyle, his humble Toyota pickup, his rejection of presidential luxuries, his refusal to indulge in the trappings of power, these are not quirks. They are a flaming arrow aimed at the heart of a corrupt continent, where leadership has long been synonymous with unchecked greed and exploitation. While many African leaders plunder billions meant for hospitals, schools, and infrastructure, squandering their nation's wealth on palaces, private jets, and foreign mistresses, Traoré's revolutionary governance in Burkina Faso is shaking the foundations of corruption across the continent. His leadership is a mirror that Africa's rulers cannot bear to face, a blueprint they dare not follow, and a clarion call to a pan-African awakening, one that will shake this land from Cairo to Cape Town. Let's strip away the pretense and speak the plain truth. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, thrust into power by the righteous fury of the September 2022 coup that overthrew the spineless Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, has spat in the face of presidential privilege. Unlike those before him, he refused the bloated paycheck of a head of state, choosing instead to live on his soldier's salary, a mere $1,000 a month. Yes, you heard that right. In a continent where leaders stash billions in Swiss vaults, where their net worth soars into the stratosphere on the backs of starving children, Traoré's wealth is but a whisper, a pebble in a sea of stolen fortunes. No sprawling estates in London, no secret accounts in the Caymans, no golden toilets, no diamond-encrusted watches. His treasure is his integrity. His armor is his humility. His crown is the trust of his people. While Africa's so-called servants of the people glide through cities in convoys of Mercedes-Benz, bulletproof Range Rovers, and custom Rolls-Royces, Traoré moves through Ouagadougou in a battered Toyota pickup or a military truck, the very kind his soldiers ride into battle. No tinted windows to shield him from the people he serves. No fortified palaces to separate him from the realities of the common man. To Africans who have watched their presidents glide past in motorcades longer than village water queues, Traoré's unpretentious Toyota is a thunderbolt. A symbol that power need not be a tool of oppression. That leadership is a burden to be carried with honor, not a throne to be draped in gold. Now cast your eyes across this wounded continent and behold the shame of those who claim to lead us. Billions of dollars, our children's futures, have vanished into the abyss of their greed. These are funds that should have built hospitals where mothers could give birth without fear, schools where young African minds could soar, roads and railways to stitch our nations together in unity and progress. Instead, what do we see? In Nigeria, a former governor's $50 million mansion in Abuja mocks the millions who die for lack of medicine. In Kenya, a president's private helicopter lifts off while floods drown the forgotten. In Equatorial Guinea, a dictator's son flaunts a $2 million Bugatti while his people eat dust. From the marble halls of Luanda to the penthouses of Johannesburg, the story is the same. African wealth stolen and squandered while the masses suffer. But change is coming. Traoré's leadership is a rallying cry, a call for a new generation of African leaders who serve the people, not their own breed. The age of foreign puppets and corrupt elites is dying. The time of leaders who stand with their people, not above them, is upon us. Burkina Faso is proving that Africa can take back its dignity, reclaim its resources, and forge a future that is truly ours. The question is, will the rest of Africa rise to meet this challenge? Africa's wealth does not flow to its people, it flows to its plunderers. Picture this, brothers and sisters. An East African leader whose garage is lined with Porsches, Lamborghinis, and a Maybach so extravagant that its price tag alone could build 1,000 classrooms. a West African oil baron turned president, whose fleet of private jets, each a flying palace, costs more than his nation's entire health budget. A Central African strongman who celebrates his birthday in Paris with festivities that rival the excesses of old Versailles, while his own people drink from contaminated streams. These are not leaders. They are vultures feasting on the carcass of African independence. Their diamond cufflinks glitter with the tears of our mothers. Their imported wines are mixed with the blood of our miners. Their silk suits are woven from the shattered dreams of our youth, and yet they dare to call themselves Africans. But let's speak plainly. They are nothing more than colonizers in black skin. These men are puppets, their strings pulled by foreign masters. They sit in gilded palaces while their people perish in poverty. But while they tighten their grip on stolen wealth, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is planting seeds of revolution in Burkina Faso, seeds that are sprouting into thorns in the sides of Africa's greedy rulers. Since seizing power in the September 2022 coup, Traoré has embarked on a mission to dismantle the entrenched systems of dependency, exploitation, and corruption that have long shackled the continent. To many, he is not just a soldier-turned-president. He is a symbol of a resurgent African spirit, a man whose bold initiatives are sending shockwaves from Dakar to Nairobi. As a Pan-African journalist, I see in Traoré's Burkina Faso a blueprint for Africa, one that dares to imagine a future liberated from the chains of neo-colonialism and internal betrayal. His rise to power was no accident. Burkina Faso, a landlocked Sahelian nation of 22 million, had been battered for years by a deadly Islamist insurgency, economic stagnation, and political instability. The removal of his predecessor, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, was not just a coup. It was a response to a government that had failed to protect its people or harness its wealth for national progress. Traoré, a young artillery captain with a reputation for courage on the battlefield, stepped forward with a promise, security, and sovereignty. But what sets him apart is not just his rhetoric, it's the audacity of his actions. While other African leaders continue the tired cycle of begging for foreign aid, setting lopsided IMF loans, and handing over natural resources to multinational corporations, Traoré has chosen a different path. He has turned inward, redirecting Burkina Faso's wealth towards its own development. Take, for example, his recent $20 million acquisition of hydro-agricultural equipment, graders, hydraulic shovels, and more, all paid for not with borrowed funds, but with Burkina Faso's own hard cash. This investment is a game-changer for a nation where over 80% of the population depends on agriculture. It is no coincidence that in 2024, Burkina Faso achieved a record-breaking cereal production of nearly 6 million tons. Food security is no longer just a dream. It is becoming a pillar of Burkina Faso's sovereignty. Now, compare this to the antics of other African leaders. While they fly off to Western capitals, hat in hand, to secure loans they will later stash in offshore accounts, Traoré is building the foundations for self-sufficiency. While they'd mortgage their nation's futures to foreign interests, Traoré is investing in infrastructure that will feed his people. The message is loud and clear. Posts on X, formerly Twitter, have celebrated Traoré's bold move, with one user noting, "While several African presidents are busy securing loans that they will later loot, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has secured $20 million worth of equipment, paid for by Burkina Faso's own hard cash." It is a stinging rebuke to the continent's kleptocrats, who now watch nervously as Burkina Faso charts a course they have long refused to take. The question remains, will other African nations dare to follow this path, or will they continue to be shackled by the greed of their so-called leaders? Then there's the gold sector, one of Burkina Faso's most valuable resources. For decades, this precious metal has been extracted from Burkinabe soil, yet its wealth has bypassed the people who call this land home. Foreign companies, French, Canadian, Russian, British, and Australian, have dominated the industry, enriching themselves while leaving behind mere crumbs for Burkina Faso. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré is rewriting this story. He has moved to take control of the country's gold sector, establishing a state-owned gold refinery and signaling an end to exploitative contracts. This is about more than economics. It is about dignity. By reclaiming its resources, Burkina Faso is sending a powerful message to the world. Africa's wealth belongs to Africans. The implications of this move are seismic. If Burkina Faso succeeds in reclaiming control over its natural wealth, it could inspire other mineral-rich nations, like the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zimbabwe, to reevaluate their own exploitative deals with foreign powers. The ripple effect could reshape Africa's economic landscape, breaking the chains of resource exploitation that have kept the continent impoverished for centuries. But Traoré's vision does not stop at gold. He is laying the foundation for an integrated pharmaceutical industry, one that will produce essential medicines domestically. No longer will Burkina Faso be at the mercy of overpriced imported drugs or the conditional aid packages of foreign powers. Imagine an Africa that manufactures its own medicines, free from the whims of Western suppliers, unshackled from the strings attached to foreign assistance. This is a dream that Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader of the 1980s, would have championed, and it is one that Traoré is determined to realize. His commitment to healthcare is evident in the construction of a new 500-bed national hospital. While other African leaders lament the freezing of US aid, Traoré is building systems designed to make Burkina Faso self-sufficient. This is not just about bricks and mortar. It is about breaking the cycle of dependency that has left African nations begging for handouts. As one social media user aptly put it, you won't see Captain Ibrahim Traoré crying over frozen US health aid because his government isn't begging. These projects are not just transforming Burkina Faso, they are shaking Africa's corrupt elite to their core. For too long, African leaders have thrived on a system of patronage, siphoning public funds and cozying up to their former colonial masters. Traoré's rejection of this model is a direct challenge to the status quo. He has removed French as an official language, stripped colonial names from streets, and expelled French diplomats accused of subversion. His pivot towards Russia and the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, alongside Mali and Niger signal a broader geopolitical shift, one that prioritizes African agency over Western approval. This defiance has not gone unnoticed. Across social media, Traoré is hailed as a true son of Africa, a leader who has banned colonial-era judicial wigs, confronted imperialist interests head-on, and dared to imagine a future where Africa stands on its own feet. Some claims, like the total payoff of Burkina Faso's external debt, may be exaggerated. Estimates still place it at over $10 billion. But the sentiment remains clear. Africans are hungry for leaders who prioritize sovereignty over subservience, who choose nation-building over corruption, and who lead not for personal enrichment, but for the upliftment of their people. Unlike many juntas that seize power only to entrench themselves in luxury, Traoré is using his authority to build something new. His Burkina Faso is not just a national experiment. It is a pan-African wake-up call. His bold policies, agricultural self-sufficiency, resource control, and pharmaceutical independence, challenge the long-standing narrative that Africa must forever be a supplicant at the global table. With every step he takes, Traoré is proving that another Africa is possible, an Africa that owns its wealth, produces its own goods, and charts its own destiny. Across the African continent, the stench of corruption lingers in the grand halls of power. Leaders hoard wealth with impunity while their people struggle to survive. The betrayal is evident. State resources squandered, foreign powers appeased, and a legacy of servitude upheld by those sworn to protect the land. But something is shifting. a new force has emerged. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has defied the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the neocolonial grip of France, striking a chord with a generation tired of empty promises and endless exploitation. Will he succeed? The challenges are immense. Insurgencies, economic blockades, and regional pressures loom large. But true success is not measured by ease. It is measured by courage. And Traoré has planted the seeds of an African revolution. If Burkina Faso can prove that an African nation can stand on its own terms, free from foreign dominance, it will ignite a wildfire of change. Let the corrupt beware. The people are watching. In Traoré, they see what could be, a continent unshackled, bold, and free. His modest life is an indictment of their theft. His humility is a mirror reflecting their greed. His Toyota is a whip cracking across their backs, a reminder that leadership is about service, not self-indulgence. They toss and turn in their marble palaces, haunted by the ghosts of what they could have been. Leaders, not leeches. They whisper in fear, if he can do it, why can't we? But they know the answer. They lack the courage, the honor, and the love for their people. Traoré's Burkina Faso exposes their cowardice. It is a living testament to what true leadership looks like. And the people are beginning to ask, why not here? Why not us? Africa cannot afford another decade of elites who betray their people for personal gain. Traoré's path is the only path, a return to the spirit of Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, and Thomas Sankara. Leaders who put Africa first, who saw the land not as a marketplace for foreigners, but as the home of a proud and self-sufficient people. At the Russia-Africa Summit in 2023, Traoré posed a question that still echoes across the continent. How does Africa, with so much wealth underground, remain the world's poorest continent? The answer is not found in the stars, nor in the West. The answer is in the greed of our leaders. But Burkina Faso is rejecting that path. Traoré has expelled French troops, severed the umbilical cord of neocolonial dependency, and turned to new alliances, not as beggars, but as equals. He is forging a nation that refines its own gold, feeds its own children, and builds its own future. This is Pan-Africanism in action, not in empty speeches, but in self-reliance, dignity, and unity. Imagine an Africa where every president slashes their salary to match a soldier's wage, where Bentleys are traded for bicycles, where the billions wasted on private jets are redirected into public works, hospitals in every district, schools in every village, railways connecting Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Imagine leaders who fear the wrath of the people, not the other way around. The spark that will burn the old order. Traoré's Burkina Faso is not a utopia. It is a nation at war, bleeding from insurgent wounds, weighed down by sanctions. But it is a spark, a torch lighting the path forward, a roar of possibility. If a young captain in one of Africa's smallest nations can stand against global powers, what excuse do the oil-rich giants have? What alibi can the diamond-studded despots offer? Sons and daughters of Africa, let us not marvel at Traoré's humility. Let us demand it as our birthright. Let us not sit idly as Burkina Faso rises. Let us rise with it. From the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean, the age of lavish betrayers is over. The era of servant leaders must dawn. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not just Burkina Faso's lion. He is Africa's conscience. His hands wield the axe that fells the tree of corruption. His vision tills the soil of progress. His defiance is the sword that defends our sovereignty. Let his example burn the palaces of the greedy to ash. Let it awaken the mighty spirit of a continent that has slept too long under the boots of its own sons. For in Traoré's Burkina Faso, we see not just a nation reborn, but a Pan-African dream rekindled. One where our wealth serves our people, where our leaders kneel before us, where Africa rises as one, unbowed, unstoppable. The Lion of Ouagadougou has rode. Will we roll with him? Let me say this before I conclude. Corruption in Africa is not a new story. It is a recurring betrayal, stretching from the colonial era, when foreign powers plundered our lands with the help of local collaborators, to the post-independence period, where some so-called liberators transformed their victories into personal enrichment schemes. The statistics are staggering. The African Union estimates that the continent loses over $148 billion annually to corruption. Money that could build infrastructure, educate our youth, and lift millions out of poverty. In Nigeria, oil wealth has been siphoned off by successive regimes, while citizens endure power outages and crumbling roads. In Kenya, public funds vanish into ghost projects, while the cost of living skyrockets. This is not mere mismanagement. It is a deliberate assault on the dignity of the African people. It is the reason our hospitals lack medicine, why our children study under trees instead of in proper classrooms, why our roads crumble while leaders parade in convoys of luxury SUVs. Corruption is why Africa is still held hostage by the West. Through institutions like the IMF and World Bank, foreign powers dictate economic policies under the guise of development aid. But these so-called loans are shackles, designed to strangle sovereignty and perpetuate dependency. The people have had enough. They are demanding action. And that is why Captain Ibrahim Traoré has become a symbol of hope. Because unlike the puppets of the West, he stands with his people. He does not sit in golden palaces, dressed in tailored suits. He wears military fatigues, walks among his people, and speaks their language, not just figuratively, but literally. He does not govern from an ivory tower. He leads from the trenches. When he says, "We want to get our population out of misery," it is not empty rhetoric. It is a mission. His government has mobilized communities to fight alongside the military against insurgents. It has empowered local militias, strengthened agricultural self-sufficiency, and cut off the neocolonial parasites that have drained Africa for too long. These are not perfect solutions. Critics point to human rights concerns and the slow pace of democratic transition. But let us be honest. What democracy is there in poverty? What freedom is there in hunger? His solutions may not be polished, but they are born of necessity, not greed. The world witnessed Africa's admiration for Traoré in full display on January 7, 2025, at the inauguration of Ghana's President John Mahama in Accra. But Traoré did not arrive as just another visiting leader. He arrived as a symbol of revolution. Dressed in his signature military attire, holstered pistol at his side, he stepped onto the stage at Black Star Square, and the crowd erupted, not in applause for a mere guest, but in a thunderous cheer for a vision. A vision of an Africa free from corruption, free from foreign domination, free from self-serving elites. Ghanaians recognized him instantly. A people with their own history of revolutionary leadership under Kwame Nkrumah. They saw in Traoré a kindred spirit, a man who dares to dream of a self-reliant Africa. This moment was no accident. Across social media, from Lagos to Nairobi, from Johannesburg to Dakar, Africans have hailed Traoré as a new Thomas Sankara, the Burkina revolutionary who was assassinated in 1987 for daring to put his people before foreign interests. Like Sankara, Traoré took power at 34. Like Sankara, he has embraced self-reliance over dependency. On platforms like X, formerly Twitter, young Africans call him the blueprint, the model of leadership that rejects Western aid and prioritizes local solutions. In Ghana, his presence was a reminder that true leadership is not about power. It is about service, about inspiration, about uniting a weary continent. African leaders must learn from Traoré. They must dismantle the corrupt systems that prop them up. This means prosecuting thieves in high places, not shielding them. They must reject the dependency model forced on Africa. The days of waiting for the West's approval must end. They must walk among their people, not above them. Leadership is not about luxury. It is about responsibility. The age of betrayal is over. The people are awake. The people are watching, and they will no longer tolerate leaders who loot while their nations starve. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not just a man. He is a movement that will reshape Africa, with or without the consent of the old guard. The only question left is, will the rest of Africa follow? Transparency in public spending means no more secret deals with foreign corporations, no more backroom agreements that enrich a few while the masses suffer. It means channeling resources into education, healthcare, and job creation, not lavish personal palaces and endless luxury. The true measure of a nation's strength is not in its leaders' wealth, but in the well-being of its people. Corruption thrives because leaders allow it. But as Captain Ibrahim Traoré has shown, it can be uprooted when the political will exists. He is proof that African nations do not have to bow to corruption, that a government can serve its people instead of plundering them. The old excuse that corruption is too entrenched to fix is a lie peddled by those who profit from it. Beyond fighting corruption, African leaders must reject neocolonialism in all its forms. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank have trapped Africa in a cycle of debt, forcing nations to privatize their resources and cut vital social programs to repay loans they never truly needed. Loans they could have avoided if their wealth had not been stolen in the first place. Traoré's pivot away from these institutions is a clarion call to all of Africa. It proves that the continent can fund its own development. Leaders must negotiate trade deals that benefit their citizens, not distant shareholders. They must protect Africa's natural resources: gold in Burkina Faso, oil in Nigeria, cobalt in the DRC, not for foreign profiteers, but for the people who live above them. Africa's riches must serve Africans. Another pillar of true independence is self-sufficiency. Traoré's push for local agriculture and industry echoes the wisdom of Tanzania's Julius Nyerere, who understood that a nation cannot be truly free if it cannot feed and clothe itself. It is madness that African nations import billions in food annually while fertile land lies fallow. This must end. Leaders should follow Burkina Faso's model, empowering citizens to build their economies from the ground up. Development must be by the people, for the people. Most crucially, African leaders must listen to the youth. Traoré's rise is no accident. He represents a generation tired of waiting for change. Africa's median age is 19, yet its rulers are often decades older, clinging to power as if it were their birthright. The youth are restless, marching in Senegal, protesting in Kenya, cheering in Ghana. Leaders can either harness this energy for transformation or be swept away by it. Of course, Traoré's path is not without risks. Burkina Faso remains embattled with insurgents controlling vast territories. His growing alliances with Russia and other non-Western powers have raised questions about new forms of dependency. His delay in transitioning to civilian rule has sparked accusations of authoritarianism. Yet these challenges do not diminish his vision, they underscore its audacity. Africa's leaders do not need to copy his every move, but they must adopt his courage. The courage to break with the past, to defy foreign domination, to dismantle the systems of greed and exploitation that have held Africa down for too long. The celebration of Traoré in Ghana was more than a moment, it was a message. From the Sahel to the coast, Africans are yearning for leaders who fight for them, not against them. Corruption has boiled us dry, but revolution, principled, people-centered revolution, can heal us. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not the only answer, but he is proof that answers exist. The question is no longer whether Africa can rise. The people are ready, are the leaders. Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.